Welcome to Wasted Local Talent.
What is up, everybody? I'm Daniel.
I'm Ashley.
And today we're wasting our talent with...
Marc Dunbar. I go by Dusk Glass.
So, since we've been doing this Skype interview because, COVID and all that crap, Ashley is currently sitting in a church parking lot hiding from her children. No.
I'm in a car. I'm not just sitting in the parking lot.
Yeah, she's not just sitting on the front steps of a church. Is church going on right now there, or is it too late? No?
No.
But it's Sunday.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I thought about that, but there's like one car here, but I don't think there's anybody actually here.
Except for you. So
I'm in Sevier County, Tennessee right now.
Oh, crap. I didn't realize you were that far away.
Yeah.
It's going to be hot.
It's not that bad. It's 82.
It's not too bad. So Marc, tell us a little bit about Dusk Glass and what you do.
Yeah. So I have always just really liked glass from when I had gotten into high school. I started smoking weed, and I just really enjoyed the pipes that I saw. And growing up in Wheeling, I had been to the Glass Museum a lot. We have a little glass shop up in Ogilvy Park, and I had gone up there a lot as a kid. And growing up in West Virginia, I used to be really big in making of glass. We had like Fenton Glass, and there were a couple other places that were super prominent. And I just really fell in love with the medium. I just kind of had a calling to it. I would get pipes for people made especially in high school. If someone had an idea that they wanted, I would go and find an artist that would be able to make that. And I just really enjoyed it to the point where I wanted to do it, but I didn't really have a means to or access to it. It's not like anyone your neighbor blows glass. You don't really hear about people blowing glass, at least not around here in West Virginia. So I kind of was just stuck liking it for a long time. And that's just kind of what got me into the whole thing. I just really love the medium.
So I had this conversation a couple weeks ago with somebody because there's that show, I think it's on Netflix, where it's about glass blowers.
Mm-hmm.
And
is there?
Yeah, it's really good. It's like one of the competition type shows, kind of like a baking show, but with glass. It's pretty cool. But so whenever you hear the word glory hole as a glass blower, what do you think?
There's my alarm so I don't miss the podcast.
Okay, hold on. I have hearing problems, so I have subtitles turned on. Daniel, what did you just ask him?
Whenever he hears the term phrase glory hole.
You said you did glory hole.
Yes, I did. Because
I wanted to double check first.
Because in the glass world, it means something different than, to somebody who's not in tune with that.
I just wanted to double check before I started trying to be in on this conversation.
Okay.
So in glass blowing, when I hear glory hole, it's basically the heated oven that you put it's where you put the glass whenever it's hot is the best way to describe it. That's actually a different wheelhouse from what I do. That's dealing with soft glass.
Mm-hmm.
I've had the opportunity to do it once or twice, but primarily I do lamp working, which is with a torch directly in front of you. You're working on a bench. It's all right there. So that's with soft glass, where you normally work with a team of 3 to 4 people, and you can really kind of get into a flow. And you can make some really cool things and really big things that way. It's dealing with soft glass, which is a different coefficient. It kind of acts different than borosilicate.
Okay.
So, but yeah.
Yeah, because the other term, you're usually putting hard stuff in the glory hole, not soft stuff. But,
yeah.
Or you put the soft stuff in there to make it hard. Anyway, enough about glory holes.
It feels so blasphemous right now, sitting in the church parking lot.
Sitting in a church parking lot talking about glory holes. That's not
I
good.
always get like blowjob jokes being a glass blower. It's just
There was one made in our group chat right before we started this.
perfect. I'm not surprised.
Not
Yeah.
about you. Directed at Daniel.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So
Well, I guess Daniel.
yeah, which coming from Josiah was a little off kilter. It was a little weird, but
I grew up with one of my best friends growing up. Her dad owns, he blows glass in Doddridge County.
Thanks.
And I remember going out to his building and watching him do it. It's fascinating to watch. Like, it's such a cool process.
Yeah, it's a very slow process is the thing. A lot of people do say like they want to watch and they'll watch for like 5 minutes and then they're bored because it's a very tedious procedure. It's all about timing and getting the proper amount of heat in the glass that you need. You can't fight the glass. You got to get it to do what you want. And it takes a long time, and it's sometimes just minuscule moves at a time and like switching the axis, which means you're just switching the angle at which you're working the piece by switching blow tubes from the right side to the left side. So if you're working the top or bottom and stuff like that, and it just takes a long time to get anything done. But as you get things dialed in, you kind of can get into like more of like a workflow with it.
Mm-hmm. So how long have you been doing your own glass blowing?
Well, I've been blowing glass for about 5 years now. It's kind of like a interesting story how I managed to get into all of it. Like I kind of started telling you earlier, I really like found my passion for the art in high school, and I like took that with me to college. I didn't really have a lot of time or like money or anything. Like I actually was supposed to take a glass blowing class, but my mom did not understand and got me the wrong kind of glass blowing classes, the one involving the glory hole. And I was like, oh, that's not what
Damn it, Mom, stop buying me glory hole classes.
Right? So I saved up money during college, and I decided that I was going to go up to the Pittsburgh Glass Institute up in Pittsburgh. And I took a week intensive up there with Tim Dreyer, and I just wanted to try it out. I wanted to see how I felt because it's something that I really had loved from like a distance and admired. I wanted to take my hands at it and try it. And I had a great time. It was really difficult and trying, but I came out with a sense that this is, something that's really like I do care about a lot. And I ended up taking another class, and I liked it. I was just trying to soak up as much information as I could. At that point, I was just about to graduate college. And during that time, I felt like I was in a pivotal place where, it's like when you're young, it's like the time to like chase your dreams or go after what you want. It's harder to do those things whenever you have a family, you have like kids, you have stuff you got to take care of. So I decided that I was going to go pursue glass in whatever fashion that meant. And I applied to Salem Community College, which is in New Jersey. It's the only place in the United States that you can get an accredited scientific glassblowing degree. It's about a 2-year college, and I was going to go up there. I ended up out in Texas. And how all that came to fruition was I didn't know anyone who blew glass. Like I said, it's not something that I was aware of. I like knew one of my friend's brother blew glass somewhere sometimes, but it's like I never could figure out who that was or anything. And I ended up using Instagram and Facebook, and I just got a hold of glass blowers across the country. I got a hold of schools, and I just kind of put it all on the table. I said, hey, I've been blowing glass for about 30 hours. Here's a portfolio of my work. I know it's not the best, but I'm willing to come out there. This is the amount of money I have. What can you offer me? I'll sleep wherever I can. I'll clean the shop, do the dirty work. I'll do some of your work for you. I just was like willing to do whatever. And I talked to a couple of different places, one of them being the Penland School. And then there was another school down in North Carolina. I might be confusing. Penland might be in North Carolina. Regardless, there were a couple people and there was a guy that lived in what he called an earth ship. He was trying to start an alternative living lifestyle community, and he offered for me to come out there. And I didn't end up taking.
I want you to elaborate on what that is.
I don't 100% know. I know he had just gotten out of jail and was trying to restart his life, and he wanted to live in a community. He had a communal living space that was like out in the desert that like was big, and you could go live there and you could trade your work for like.
Okay, so it was like.
Yeah, basically. It was something like that, and he was trying to blow glass there as well. He made, I think his name was Dizzy. He made like these little cups that they used to be popular. They looked like little, like actual drinking cups, but you could smoke out of them. So I ended up getting a hold of all these people and trying to weigh my options. And I ended up out in Texas. I got a hold of Earl Jr. Glass. His name's Darren. Really great friend of mine. Really did a lot of things for me and like helped me out. He told me if I wanted to come out to Texas that I was more than willing to, and that I would have a place to stay at his house, and that he was more than willing to let me stay for a month. So I drove out to Texas. I didn't know anyone in Texas, didn't know anything, just got in my car and drove 18 hours out to Texas over 2 days in the middle of July. I did not think about how hot Texas is in July. And the fact that we ended up being in a storage unit place. So in Texas, middle of July for a month blowing glass in a storage unit thing with no AC, which I'm sure we'll get back to. But so I drove out there and actually show up, and I tried to I showed up, and as soon as I got there, he basically told me, I'm not staying. You're not actually staying with me. You're staying with this guy down the street, and he's actually not home right now, but it'll be okay. He's going to get in on a flight. So, I just drove 18 hours out there. Huh?
This is how people get murdered.
I know. My mom was very, very scared for me. But I ended up smoking. I hadn't really smoked dabs that much at the time, and I ended up getting way too high there for the first time meeting somebody. I don't think they noticed, but I just was irked on it. And then I went down the street and I met my new roommates, and I just went to sleep, and I got woken up by someone being like, "Who are you?" And I'm like, "I'm gonna stay here for a month." Darren told me that's what's happening. This ended up being one of his other apprentices and a longtime friend, Evan Flex Glass. And I kind of just soaked it all in for a month. And like I said, it was really hot out in Texas, but I worked through it 8 hours a day. I just really wanted it. And glass isn't something that comes easy. A lot of people think they're going to pick it up, and it's just, they can just make whatever. And it's really hard to do lots of things. It's hard. People don't expect it to take so much time and everything, but it was really a good thing for me because it's taught me a lot of patience and other just things that I take into my everyday life that I'm just not a patient person. I'm very on the go. Even whenever I'm if this was a phone call, I'd just be pacing around my house right now. Luckily this is a desktop. I can't carry it around. So it's helped me become patient more. And I just really enjoyed my time out in Texas. And I was kind of met at a crossroads of whether they said, "Hey, if you want to move back out here and you want to try to do it out here with us." And they're a bunch of pipe makers. And they had a line that they were doing, a production line. And they had a studio, and like Darren's does very well for himself in the glass scene. And I was had a choice to come back out there, or I could go do the scientific glassblowing degree in New Jersey. And they both had their pros and cons. And I decided that I was going to go the hippie way and go to out there and learn pipe making. And I packed all my stuff up. And after coming back for a month or two, and I drove my car out to Texas, and that's kind of where it all started.
That's a very like Ashley said, that's how you get murdered. How did they did this person that you stayed with, did he know that you were going to be there whenever he came home?
No, he did not. But Darren has a tendency to like maybe spring things on Evan like that. So it seemed like it was like not an unusual thing for him to be like, oh, well, this is happening. But yeah, it is, it is how you get murdered and stuff, I guess. I've always thrown a little bit of caution to the wind, in some sense, but it's kind of like, I knew if I wanted to do this, I couldn't sit around and wait for it. It was something that was going to fall into my lap. It was definitely something that I would need to pursue, and I was willing to like go there. And that's like actually one of the reasons why like Darren put so much faith and confidence into me, because he's like, a lot of people can't even get out of bed to go do the stuff that they want to do, and he's like, you were willing to drive 18 hours across the country to come and do this. So he's like, I knew that you like wanted it. Mm-hmm. So I knew you were worth my time.
And there's no better way to learn an art form than to spend time with other artists.
Yeah.
That is the truth.
That's something that you need that experience to better yourself as an artist.
Yeah, I was super lucky to be able to apprentice under Darren, like I said, Earl Jr., and I also ended up doing some apprenticeship under Cage Glass, Kevin. He's out there in the studio as well, and I learned like a wealth of knowledge from these guys. And it was kind of weird because the internet has really changed the glass community, because glass is really a like well-kept trade secret. In Italy, in the island of like Murano, that's like if you went to that island, you weren't like allowed to leave. Like it was a hidden thing, and like it went from something that you could only really learn from an apprentice, or being an apprentice, or lots and lots of trial and failure, because everyone really hid their secrets. And now with like the internet, there are tons and tons of like information at your fingertips. And it was weird because for a long time, like in like it seemed like the late 90s, early 2000s, that the people weren't sharing information still. Everyone was trying to like guard it. But now it's kind of weird because some people you can look on YouTube and basically see how to do tons and tons and tons of different techniques. And some people like say that's not right. Some people think that it's okay. And it's weird because you can learn a lot easier by yourself now. Whereas if you, in the past, you wanted to do it, you had to have somebody.
And glass, like around this area, like obviously in like Weston, you've got the Glass Museum. And I've heard of, I don't know if they're classes or if they're just kind of like exhibits where you can go and watch people blow glass and things around here too. So I know it's been big, like around the Weston area, like the glass. I don't know too much about the history of it, but I know that back a long time ago, it was like a really big business, essentially, is making glass around here.
Yeah. It's it used to be a lot of glassware handmade. I mean, a lot of that stuff is now automated now. It's just hard to compete. Like, there are people who sell like artisan cups. I just had a traveling artist come through my spot, Taffy the Gray, and he like makes cups, but he sells them for $75 to $175 for a cup. And it's, if you don't appreciate the art or what you're like looking at, like the handmade craft, then you just see a cup. And one person would scoff at for like $75, another would gladly pay it. And it's real interesting because there's a lot of different, like, coming from a pipe maker community and making mostly functional pieces. And I mean, I do make non-functional pendants and marbles, but it's usually going to about the same audience. It's really weird what people like think it's like okay or not.
Well, it's with any type of art, like what like Ashley does with her jewelry and stuff. It's like you're not, you're paying for the piece, yes, but the reason, especially like local, anybody like local, something that's not mass produced, like people like you blowing glass and Ashley making her jewelry and stuff, like it's the time and the effort that you put into it, and that's what supports everybody. It's same with like musicians or any kind of like art is. It might seem to like somebody like, oh, $75 is expensive, but you're not paying for just, it's handmade and you don't get that anymore. And I would much rather pay more for something that was handmade than go to Walmart and buy a fucking cup,
You're paying for the hours and hours of time it took me to learn how to do what I'm doing to give you this piece that I'm proud to be able to put that price tag on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In the pipe maker community, there's a real like anti-China sentiment because they mass produce stuff at a much cheaper price than us and outsell us, as well as they knock off designs and then undercut Americans. So it's kind of like there's a very like anti-China glass sentiment from like people who care about glass. It's different parts of the like, United States care more and care less about it. It's being in Morgantown, like I walk into a shop with a case of glass and try to sell them on a cold call. They like look at me like they're like I'm crazy because they're like, you're walking into our store trying to sell us something. Like, all right, what are you doing? But like out in Texas, I could walk into any of the head shops and just like with a case and like sell stuff. Like it's just like different, and people care more in different places. In Morgantown, people just want something cheap. It's gonna get broken probably. And I know it's a college community, but the East Coast and West Coast are really different in what they care about as far as what they want.
You don't sell anywhere in Morgantown?
I do. I sell at Fatty J's in Morgantown, and then I have sold at Glass Gone Wow. So Fatty J's has supported me a lot and given me shelf space. I don't know if they're open still. I know they were going through some management changes around COVID. So, but I sell to those two shops in town. I do have an Etsy as well, and then I sell at different music events and stuff. I really like to sell at festivals and stuff. I sneak my glass in and I pray that they don't take it. Knock on wood, they've never taken a case of mine. But it's so hard because I spend like, hundreds of hours on building this product, and then they might take it at security because I'm not supposed to, because I don't have a vendor pass. But it's worth it, and I usually make a pretty decent chunk of change. And I sell at concerts, either the ones that like we throw through Just Come Presents or other ones in town. I was really trying to get a community art night going monthly in Morgantown. I had done a couple. I would have a drum jam and a community art night. I would bring in about 10 to 15 vendors locally, and then showcase some of the local musicians that were around and try to get everyone to sell their art. And I'd get drums sourced. And it was a really cool thing that we were doing. So that was cool to sell through there. And I just post my stuff up on Instagram, and then really people like it, or they want that, or it makes them think of another idea. And I just see what people want, and I try to make it.
Have you ever been into Retrotique?
Yeah. I have been into Retrotique.
Jillian Kelly, she might be a person to talk to about selling in there. She likes to have a lot of different local artist stuff in there. Yeah.
I might talk to her about it. I've like mentioned it to her before. We actually threw a show at her place. Yeah, she's a really, really cool person. she really was cool about it. She was helping me promote the community art night thing that I was doing before I knew her. I just asked her to push it for me. But yeah, she seems really cool, and she has like a really good idea for what art should be as far as like in the community.
Yeah.
So I really
also, you know, where you could probably make a killing and like meet some really cool people is supposed to be going on right now is the Tattoo Expo.
Is that happening?
It's supposed to be going on this weekend. But they do vendors too, and all of the artists there would absolutely love your stuff.
But the really cool thing about glass is that you can like speak to so many people through it. Like you have the ability to make so many different things in this medium that you can capture just about anyone's interest, from making sculptural forms to making marbles. You can make pipes that people can use. And I like often get so overwhelmed by the fact that I can make so many things. Sometimes I'll just stand there on my torch and just be like, well, I want to make this and this and this. And I always like joke, like, all right, you're not really a glass blower unless you have 6 side projects you haven't touched in 3 months.
I have the same thing going on all the time.
So it's like I have so many like ideas that I want to perfect, and it's hard because part of like glass blowing is somewhat, as far as becoming popular, it seems to be finding something that people relate to and then replicating that throughout all of your work. And I don't exactly vibe with that 100%. I don't like making the same thing over and over again. I like making something different every time, and jumping from making a pipe to a marble to a pendant to something like completely random for no reason. Like I think that people get too stuck because they're trying to get like popular off of it, and it's kind of a catch-22. But yeah, you got to find something that fits. I used to make a bunch of toothbrushes actually, just because it was like no one. They were toothbrush dabbers. They'd have like little. You could use the back of where you would brush your teeth with to cap it, and then dab off of it. Those were pretty cool.
What's your what's your favorite thing to make? Like for yourself, like whenever you go and you just want to do something, like is it something random, or do you enjoy like one specific thing more than the next?
I would say I've kind of fallen into making like spoon pipes. I think one of the reasons is that it's just something like that lots of people like. It's easy to take around, and like you can do so many different patterns and designs on it. And I get wrapped up in how long stuff can take, and sometimes it's hard to know whether you should take 6 hours to make one product that's really good, or would you rather make the other ones won't not be really good. Would you rather take 2 hours to make something not as intricate and stuff like that? I tend to make a lot of spoon pipes. I've also just found that I can sell those well and pretty easily. So that's kind of my go-to, but I really just jump around. Sometimes I feel like making different stuff. I always think that I am a jack of all trades, master of none, because I don't take the time to continue the repetition of making something through the fact that you learn your mistakes through doing it, and then that's what keeps it. If you keep doing it over and over, that's what's fresh, and you keep thinking of new ways to do it. But sometimes I'll go back to doing something. I'm like, wait, how did I do that last time again? And I have to relearn it sometimes or figure it out.
Yeah, and another thing, like for my own personal, like I've always been curious about this. Like whenever you're working on a project with glass, like say you've got a piece that you're working on, but you need, like you said, you let it sit around for a little bit. Like, is it easy to just like take a piece that you've been working on? Like, can you just reheat it and continue working on it? Or like, how does that work? Because I'm just curious.
Yeah, so basically you work with a kiln, and a kiln is just an oven that keeps the glass at a stable temperature, and then it drops it all, because glass needs to be the same heat throughout it so that whenever it cools, it doesn't crack. It's a lot for denser objects and stuff with color specifically. So you use the kiln, and that you can take stuff in and out. as well as there's different types of flames that you can use while working, that you can then use a Bunsen and a kneeling flame, which can be used to bring the glass up to the temperature that you need, not as hot as for working temperature to where it's moving around on you, but hot enough that everything is okay. You just need to keep the glass hot and happy the whole time while you're working on it. And sometimes if you're working out of the kiln too long and you're focusing on a section, you're just gonna have to put it back in the kiln, wait till it all gets heated back up, and then you can start working again. So it depends on how you work. Sometimes I can make a spoon pipe and I can finish it all without putting it back in the kiln, and then other times the mouthpiece gets too cold and I need to put it back in the kiln, because if I would put it directly into the flame, it would just crack off because it was too thick or uneven at that point.
Huh. Yeah, it was always like, especially watching that show, like obviously that show doesn't really go in, there's so many people in the competition. So it's like, a little bit of here and there and here and there. It doesn't go into like a lot of detail about everything and how long it really takes to do stuff. So I was just curious about that. Did you have something, Ashley?
Oh, I was going to say, yesterday while we were driving, I asked Paul what he wanted me to do with his ashes when he dies, because I was bored and that was the first question that came to my mind. And he told me he wanted me to turn him into beer, which I don't think is a very good idea. But I told him I was going to have a glass blower turn him into a beer stein. So are you my guy to put my husband's ashes into a beer stein?
I don't know if I would be comfortable I've never made a beer stein, so let me get back to.
Have you ever had people ask you to work with ashes?
I have. I actually just did that a couple months ago. Somebody had bought a couple pieces off of me, and they wanted to do something for their friend who had lost their husband recently, and they asked me if I would be able to put their husband into a pipe so that she could, smoke with him.
Smoke with him?
Yeah.
Oh.
And we're to do together, and it was,
I love that.
Yeah, it was a really cool idea, and it was it's pretty daunting, like you're not just using like your raw material, you're using somebody, like I didn't want to mess it up. I don't want to throw away this guy's like ashes. I mean, obviously some, mistakes are made. I did have to throw like a tiny bit away trying to figure out how to work it, because the problem is that the human remains off nitrogen, they're very rich in nitrogen. Apparently we are very rich in nitrogen. So whenever your remains get burnt in the flame, it causes them to bubble, and it just bubbles and keeps bubbling up as if there's like tons of soap. They keep growing, and you can't get rid of them. So you have to make sure you use really fine material. I had to ask her to strain her husband's dead remains so that I got the smaller, finer pieces, and then I encased it on the end of a spoon. And then, it worked out really well. I gave it to her, and she cried, and I felt like it felt nice being able to do that for somebody.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It was a cool experience. And, I like making things that like are meaningful to people or that are important. And the fact that she was able to be closer to her husband through that.
Yeah. I love that idea.
Yeah, it was cool. I'd definitely be open to doing them again. It made my basement reek.
Really?
It smelled awful of like formaldehyde and like a dead rotting body smell, I guess. It was not ideal. So I was not expecting that much, but other than that, it was interesting. So that was the one time that I've done that, and I would be down to do it again, but
so
have to be the right project.
What's the weirdest thing anybody's asked you to make?
The weirdest thing, I'm not going to say, I won't say who it is, but
yeah, don't drop names or anything.
People ask me to make dildos and butt plugs all the time.
I have a feeling that was probably going to be your answer.
And a lot of people are just joking, but somebody wanted me to make a dildo for them and their friends. So there was two. They weren't going to share it, but she sent me the like size.
There were two dildos?
Yeah, not to share.
Okay.
Share it.
Okay. I thought you meant there were two people
There are two
sharing
people.
one.
Yeah, no, two people, two dildos. And they sent me the measurements. She was like, yeah, can you make this one this size? But can you make this one like I want mine to be bigger. And like, I was like, she's like asking me about all the sizes and stuff. And I'm like, I don't know, lady. Like it was my friend's younger sister too. That's the ticker as well.
Oh,
so
gosh.
I'm like,
Now all your friends are going to hit you up after they listen to this and they're like, what did you do? Was it my sister?
I didn't make it. I didn't end up making it for them. They didn't pay
you
me.
didn't?
No, I would have. It would have been interesting to do. I do not really want to make a dildo or butt plug because the idea of making something that someone sticks inside of their body and like the possibility of that breaking and being somehow tied back to me.
Oh yeah.
Nonsense just sounds not worth it. I'm gonna pass the buck on to somebody else who wants to deal with that world. Make good money
That's
though.
smart.
But
yeah, the idea of putting something made out of glass into my orifices doesn't sound very fun. Just
That's not even close to the weirdest thing that people put in their body.
oh yeah,
Right.
oh yeah.
So that's the
We've gotten off track.
It's always happens.
well, that's
Okay. What's the weirdest thing you've ever put in your body? Let's just take this further. No, I'm just kidding.
Me?
No, I'm just messing.
The one thing about glass is that it's kind of difficult to like huck it in the industry. Like as far as you have to find your niche and people that want to support you. And it's hard because you are your own boss, you're your own distribution, you're the shipping, the packaging, you're the one taking the pictures. You take your time up being off the torch, taking your pictures to load it onto like your websites, or if you're auctioning stuff and you have to be present to do those things or selling it, and then you can get hurt, blowing glass. Like I have been lucky enough to not hurt myself too bad. I've had some like close calls and, I've definitely had burns and cuts and, I've never had to get stitches or anything, but I've had some like pretty bad things. One time I took a hot blow tube that I didn't realize, and it was like, about the size of what you think like a chapstick container was about. And I pressed that to my lips. So I had a blister that was a circle around both of my lips. Like,
Daniel and I are both making the same face.
Yeah.
It was that, and one time I was sitting on a bench with a desk chair, how you have your knees under a desk, and this didn't have wheels on it. And I was working on a marble, and it was about 1.5 inch, 2 inch marble, super hot. It came off of the punty, which is just another piece of glass that you use to hold the marble. And it came off of that and rolled and dropped right through my pants, but I couldn't get up because my knees were stuck under the table. So I'm trying to get up. And luckily, my privates were safe. That was so close. I think it jumped inside of me. We were fine, but yeah, it was a close call. I had a burn right through my leg and have a burn mark on my thigh. It's not too bad anymore, but yeah, I've definitely had like close calls and cuts and scrapes, and I almost passed out like a year ago. I think I like stabbed myself so deeply that I just was like, I was like kind of in shock. But you don't have any insurance, It's like not like a job like that you're covered by your boss. If you get hurt, you're paying out of pocket for whatever your insurance has to get this done, and then you might be out of work. Like, if you.
Which is another reason we have to put price tags. We have to pay ourselves what our stuff is worth, because we're also paying for our medical care. We don't get insurance. We don't get paid vacations. We don't get any of that stuff when you're an artist for a living.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We have to make sure we're paying ourselves enough.
And it's hard. It's hard to get enough money, especially in the market. And it's as glass goes, it's not something that like I said, it's not easy. Like you waste a lot of time, money, material, like ruining stuff. You probably have, you make it 30 times wrong to make it right once. And then, you have it down, but every dog has its day where they don't everything doesn't go your way. And you can work like 5 hours on a piece and it dropped and it be game over. You just got to start again. And like, it's humbling, but it's hard to make a living, especially like starting out doing it. I didn't feel confident, forcing myself to solely live off of glass. And I got a job when I went out to Texas even. And it's hard because, you're paying like $300 a month for your studio time on top of all the material that you have to buy. And then you can't work at the studio because you're working at your job to afford being at the studio. And then after work, you have to go to the studio to work. So it's like you have to work on your dreams. And I understand that. And it was hard. It was really hard. I burnt myself really thin for 2 years doing that. I would just work until 6. I would get off. I would drive home, half hour, eat, drive a half hour to the studio. And I'd be in there till 2 a.m., rinse and repeat, go back and do it like every day and then the weekend I was in there in the shops on the weekend. And it's just, I really had to like push myself, and it was good. It was great. But at the same time, I found myself like, you don't get to make what you want. You get to make what other people want. And I like that somewhat, but at the same time, it's not always fun just making production and making stuff you don't want to, as you can pay your bills with it. It took kind of a little bit of the joy out of it for me at the time, because I found myself seeing it as like another job instead of something that I was going and putting my creative energy out into. So I decided to like kind of pull the brakes a little bit. I felt like I was kind of like at a crossroads in my life as far as what I should do and what would be best for me. And I felt I could get two things. And I thought I could continue blowing glass full time, like I was doing, and I would get exactly what I wanted. I'd get a lifetime of blown glass, but I would have a hard time affording stuff. I wouldn't be able to travel, which I really enjoy to do. I really would like to be able to support myself and, be able to support like my wife and kids. I don't have a wife, but, future wifey. It's like, I want them to have a job. I want to be able to take care of my family and stuff like that. And, glass is like super hard to find sustainability in, just like a lot of artistry work is. So I decided to go back to law school, and I just graduated that. And thank you. And I just have been doing glass for the past 3 years as more of a hobbyist. I do still find a lot of time to get down there to work, but I enjoy it like that a little bit more because I can go and put my time and effort into stuff that I want to do. And glass blowing tools are really expensive. Like I really wanted a nice sandblaster, and that set me back around $3,000. I wanted to get the $5,000 one, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. I wish I did. But it's just, and it's hard because obviously these things pay for themselves over time, but and that's just one tool. Like I got a set of rollers, $275. I got a Dremel, $350. Like the things that go into like glass blowing are very expensive. Like I want to get a lathe, which is basically something that turns the glass for you. People are more familiar with it with woodworking, but I want one of those. But if you want to get a nice lathe, it's going to cost you a good one. It's going to cost you like $10,000.
Oh my God.
It's not something cheap. So I found myself like at a point where if I wanted to do it like how I actually wanted to do it, I needed another source of income. And the thing about, especially in the pipe scene that I saw was a lot of people were blowing glass, at least around where I was, were doing it because they were working at McDonald's or they were working at a car shop, and they only had, or they didn't even graduate high school kind of thing. And they were like, well, I didn't want to do this. And this seemed like something else that I could do. And like, I felt like I kind of had like more options because of where I'd come from and what I had done so far. So I felt like I should utilize that. Kind of like I said, I got to do it when I'm young. So I was like, well, I got to go back to law school while I'm young, I guess. So I kind of just, I have that, but like I'm still actually I'm thinking about I'm going to move out to Colorado, and I'm trying to get a job out at Eternal Courts And, they were asking me, like, aren't you going to use your, like, law degree? And I mean, I would like to do it, but I, like, kind of also at the same time, like, glass is something that's just so important to me that, like, I want to try it again, just, like, for a little bit, see how that goes. Because, like, if I can huck it and, like, then it's fine, and I at least have the law degree to fall back on. I already have it,
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to choose what you want to do and what's the right way to do it. And, like, I still question, should I have stayed in Texas and just blown glass? Should I have not gotten another job and forced myself to work and only be able to get money off of that? Or, should I have gone to the Salem Community College and got my scientific glass degree? I always, like, wonder, like, am I making the right choices in order to do what I, like, love? But I try not to give myself too hard of a time at the same time, because I still am lucky enough to be able to blow glass. I have built a pretty nice home studio in my basement in Morgantown, and I have a lot of fun doing it when I get the chance. And I've even got my roommate has gotten into it in the last year. Kind of funny though, he lived with me for about two years, and we've lived together before. And then he just 6 months ago decided that he wanted to blow glass, and he just picked it up, and he's like, he got bit by the glass bug hard, and he's down there almost every day. We share a workbench, so he's always like, Mark, can I work today? And I'm like, go for it, bud. So it's hard to do, but I always know it's going to be something that's going to be a part of my life. In some sense, be it a full-time job, be it something I do on the side, it's just always going to be something that, like, pushes me to, like, show my creativity and stuff. And it's kind of weird because I don't really consider myself an artist. Like, I have a hard time reconciling myself to be an artist.
You definitely are.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll take it, like, graciously, but I just, like, it doesn't feel, it feels weird. I mean, I am making stuff and, creating and expressing my self through the glass, but for some reason to me, I don't feel like an artist. I don't know why, like, but yeah, it's weird.
So one more question before we get wrapped up. As far as your law degree goes, I'm just curious, like, what would you become, like, a lawyer, or what would you do with your law degree if you needed to fall back on it?
Well, I've done a lot of stuff with family law. I worked down in Clarksburg and did family law stuff there as a legal assistant. And during my 3L year, I worked at the legal clinic and took primarily family law cases, custody, divorce, guardian ad litem stuff. So I would probably fall somewhere into family law, or I am an executive director for the West Virginia Hemp Industrial Association, and we're a nonprofit, West Virginia Hemp, and we have, like, a farmers co-op as well that we, do stuff for people who are trying to grow hemp in West Virginia. We try to work on stuff for lobbying for the legislation to go through. So I really enjoyed that. I partnered with WVU, and we threw a symposium, which basically lawyers have to go take classes just like teachers do every so often to get their credits. So it was a way for people to get credits, and that was interesting. I did a nationally broadcasted symposium about hemp. Everyone then just associated with me with weed at law school, but it is what it is. But so I might do something with that, but I got kind of annoyed with that because it's a lot of, it sounds fun, like hemp and marijuana law. It sounds like it would be like a cool kind of law, and it is. It's super interesting, but I don't like dealing with the government. They don't like to give you answers about things. And it's a lot of, like, water law and, like, city zoning ordinances and a lot of, like, really dry stuff. So it's not as glitzy and glamorous as it sounds, but I do and have enjoyed that work as well. So I'd probably end up in one of those two fields.
Okay, cool. So tell everybody where they can find you online, like your Etsy, Instagram, all that stuff.
Yeah. So my Instagram is the best way to keep up with what I'm doing with my glass. That's Dusk Glass, DUSK period, and then glass. That's how you can find me on Insta. And then if you look on Etsy, it's Dusk Glass Arts. But yeah, I'm down to do customs and stuff. And I post my work that I make. And if anyone's interested in anything, they're more than welcome to hit me up. I'm always down to talk about glass, or if anyone in the area is interested in glass, wants to try it out, I'm always more than happy to talk to people and figure out some kind of thing that I can show them. I've done a couple of beginner classes with people, and they've seemed to enjoy it. So I'm always down to work with people. I really enjoy the medium. I just really want to share it with other people in any way that I can. And, like I said, I had to drive 18 hours across the United States to get what I wanted. If I can help anybody out here and, spark someone's passion, more than happy to help.
Awesome.
I would love to do a collaboration with a glass blower. So maybe we can get together and talk about that.
Yeah. What kind of jewelry do you make?
I'm an electroform artist, so I copper electroform.
Awesome. 100%. Yeah. I've done some electroforming work with glass. Yeah. It's really some fun work.
Your scorpion piece that you did is fucking sweet.
Thanks.
I love
that was
it.
for a drag queen.
Was it?
Yeah.
It's so cool. I love it.
Thank you. I think huge. That scorpion was like as big as my hand.
Yeah, it looks really big. All right, Ashley, Mark, thank you for doing this. I have to pee so bad, so I'm going to jump off here. Thanks for coming, Mark. I'm glad we finally got you on.
Thank you. Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me. Sorry I missed the last one. I'm glad that you guys could pencil me in still.
Oh, you're good. It was my sister's graduation, and I was on like a time limit, and being from Skype, I'm the only one that's got like the recording software. Like I'd have to be available to do it. So that was the only reason. If it wasn't for that, we could have done it. So
we're all good.
All right. Thank you guys.
Thanks.
Until
Bye.
next time. Bye-bye.